Hello, our guest this week is Corinna Di Niro. She's a creative academic research director performer with a strong industry and cultural connection, including comedy dell'arte, theatre, women in academia and casualisation in academia. To explain all of that, she's here.
Hi, Malcolm.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so pleased that we could talk because I've known you for a long time and I've known you in so many different departments of performing. It's the only way I can
true.
think
It's
about
been
it.
a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. But let's talk about how you began and then we'll talk about this book.
Yes, okay, great.
So, you're a little girl, you were bored and you
Oh, we're
danced
going
around
all
the
the way.
house
Yep.
and constantly wanted attention from people because you were performing. Is that your backstory?
Pretty much. I'm the youngest of 4 children, so always the youngest needs to be the loudest and try to get the attention from their
Of
parents.
course.
So I probably used singing and dancing and making up plays in order to get my parents' attention, and then that went on to lots of school plays and various local theatre groups, and in high school the same, and all the way to the end of year 12 doing drama. And then
It's the bane of my life, calling drama, because I believe it should just be called acting, the same as singing and dancing.
yes, true,
Because drama isn't really comedy
fair point.
when you think about it.
It's true.
But it's lumped into that category so
is.
often, particularly in academia. So because you're an academic, please fix that for me.
Okay, I will. It'll be my mission.
Got nothing to do with you.
So I got to the end of high school and did really well in high school, and thought I was going to go to university and study something and have one of those regular jobs, and something inside of me just wanted to keep
Well,
performing.
what did your father want you to do?
He wanted me to be an accountant.
Right.
For a while there I wanted to be a teacher, which isn't too far away from my current job. We settled somewhere on marketing. And then I convinced him, no, I really want to give acting a go. And he said to me, okay, I'll give you a year to do something. And
A year's not much
yes,
to establish
it
a
wasn't
career as
much,
an actor, though.
but I worked very hard and I got into some paid theatre work and got some jobs overseas. And then my father saw that I was really excited and loving it and kept pursuing it, and he was a bit more relaxed, coming from an Italian family, he was a bit concerned that I wasn't going to make my way.
Well, that's understandable because
Yeah.
most of the Italian people came as immigrants.
Exactly.
With that big grandfather, I would imagine, or back in the family.
Of course.
And so they were really concerned that their children would all have high-profile jobs, doctors,
yes,
dentists,
and that's fine.
accountants.
He had high hopes for me, and so I didn't want to upset him, but I found my way through theatre and performing arts, and then came. I will fast forward to I was about 28 years old, and I travelled the world.
Oh,
And
but you'd been everywhere.
I had, yeah. So I was.
And did you go back to Italy because of your lineage or heritage?
No, I was actually working with Cirque du Soleil in an offstage role for a while, and they had invited me to go to Singapore with them, and I was loving what I was watching on stage. And I remember saying to one of the performers, I love your job, I wish I could have your job. And he said to me if I was really serious about joining Cirque du Soleil, that it would look favourable if I had trained in commedia dell'arte when I went to the auditions. And I was like, right, I'm going to go do it.
Yes, I suppose I've never really thought about it in those terms, but really they use a lot of those practices,
They
don't
do,
they?
yes. So
I mean, apart from hanging upside down by your teeth.
that's right. I didn't want to do the acrobatic stuff, but I
Right.
loved all those big roving characters
Yes.
and the clowns that moved around on the
But
stage.
you didn't need a language. You
No,
just
and
needed a body language.
That's right. And so commedia was the avenue to
Right.
sort of learn all of that sort of skill set. And so that's what took me to Italy. I went there. He gave me the name of Antonio Fava, one of the world maestros in commedia. He said, this is the person you should train with, go there and then come and audition. And that's what sent me to Italy.
How amazing.
Yeah. So,
But so you came back home and you're
I did.
28 years old.
yes, so that happened that happened in my early 20s. I came back not knowing that commedia, interestingly enough, sat on our state curriculum. Back then we had a state state-by-state curriculum before moving to a national one. And it was teachers who started reaching out to me looking for some lessons in Commedia so that they could then teach their school students.
Right.
And so then I started this sort of very informal business where I would train newly graduated drama teachers in Commedia and teach them the skills, and then they would go and teach their secondary students. And,
Right.
and I was doing that for a while, and out of that came lots of opportunities to travel around, going to lots of different schools around Australia and going to lots of conferences, and all sorts of exciting things were happening for me. And I got to about 28 and I thought, oh, maybe I should go and do some formalised tertiary study, and more as a personal gift to myself. I didn't need it for my job. I just wanted to solidify my learning.
More.
Yeah.
Knowledge is such a wonderful thing to have.
Absolutely.
And it opens your mind to so many things.
And it's funny you should say that, because then I never left university. So I went thinking I was just going, I actually came to UniSA, and they had offered me a fast-tracked degree. So they utilised my industry experience for about 10 years that I had and said that I could start as a second year.
Well, yes, you're not starting at the beginning anymore,
Yeah, exactly.
You really are starting.
So, which was great. So I thought, oh, that'd be great. I'll be 30, I'll have my degree, and that'll be that. Then when I finished my degree and they opened up honours to the performing arts cohort, I thought, oh, one more year, okay, I'll do that. And then
I don't know what you just did then. That was very clever, whatever you did. Was that mind power?
Yes, yeah, it was. Then I finished my honours degree and they said, oh, fancy, trying out for an academic scholarship for a PhD.
Right.
And it was the very first time UniSA were going to offer a performing arts PhD. They hadn't had one before. And I was the recipient of that, which was great.
How brilliant.
I know. So I got an academic scholarship for 4 years, and I got to create my own Commedia play and design it and shape it the way I wanted to, fly out my master from Italy to come and help me on the project.
What a wonderful thing to happen, though, because for anybody who has taught or coached or guided or mentored anybody, people just move on, but they don't always come back to say, thank you, here, come back into my world again. What a lovely thing to be able to do.
It was wonderful to have him here. And he really helped me build a really remarkable show called The Marriage of Flavio and Isabella, very modern interpretation of a Commedia story. And
we're using the term, but not everyone knows how do you define
Commedia
dell'arte?
Yes, it's tricky, isn't it? So it's Commedia dell'arte.
Delightful comedy?
Yes. No, it actually means the theatre of professionals.
Oh, does it?
So it's a
I never knew that.
Well, it's loosely referred to now as the art of comedy. People sort of give it its own translation. But actually, Commedia in the 16th century meant all theatre, was the term given for theatre. And arte means trade or your business. So anyone, whether you're a shoemaker or a lawyer or a doctor or an artist, your arte is your business. And so it was the theatre of professionals. They were paid actors.
Right.
So if you were performing Commedia dell'arte, you were a paid actor.
I think most people, though, see that as, the masks or the big noses or the arlecchinos or the characters.
So so there's a lot of myths. So that is what we're talking about, the arlecchino and the dottore and the pantaloni and the servants and the masters and the lovers and the captains. But what we see in history are paintings of street theatre. And yes, there were lots of Commedia performers out there on the streets, but there were also the really good ones were inside being paid for their work.
Right.
And we don't have a lot of evidence and facts around all of that. So we get a bit confused.
Well, it's interesting because that's sort of what's happened today,
of course,
in many ways, with the street performers and the people in the theatres.
Of course,
Nothing much changes in life, really.
It doesn't.
Is that what your degree has sort of taught you, though, that we come from such rich cultural backgrounds, but really not a lot changes? It's sort of things repeat themselves?
Well, history always repeats itself.
Well, of course it does.
So
it's what frustrates me is the people who don't want to learn from history. Have you found that academically?
Yes, so sometimes, particularly in my creative practice, I'm a bit of a you got to know the rules before you can break them artist. So I like to embed myself in the historical knowledge of why that genre exists and what makes that genre special. And then when I know those principles, then I like to expand and break them and twist them and do what I can with them and modernize them. But there is
to make a good story, you have to do that, don't you?
You do. And so what happens with an art form like commedia is people sometimes forget that it's a 16th century genre of theatre and it's designed in a particular way, and they just utilise just a previous diluted form of what they've seen and
something that's
build out of that. So
it's been handed down to them from someone else.
It becomes a bit like Chinese whispers. By the
I
time it gets around, it's kind of not
yeah.
really what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I understand. But we're going to come back and talk to you about a whole lot more in just a moment. We'll see you then. Our guest is Corinna Di Niro. Corinna, we're just talking about Commedia dell'arte, and you've written this book.
Yes. Well, I co-edited.
You co-edited
and
the
I
book.
have a few chapters in it, but I can't take credit for the whole thing.
But it's fascinating what's inside this book.
Yes.
Having come up as a young actor with no training whatsoever, just learning on the job, working with people, I did a show very early in the piece while I was so knowledgeable about the Arlecchino character because that's what I played.
Right, okay.
But it was performed, as we were saying before this, probably from a hearsay to hearsay to hearsay,
right.
if you know what I mean. And unfortunately, I had no idea of what I was doing. I just listened to what I was told to do and did it. But obviously there's a whole lot more behind this. The structure behind this is quite complex.
It is actually. Well, because it was an all-encompassing form of theatre. So everything from singing, dancing, music, full monologues.
And the characterisation of the established characters.
Exactly, and then utilising your body to communicate. So you had to speak and also have very precise gestures because not everyone in the audience would understand what you were saying. So there was a whole form of language, both body and voice, happening at the same time. And there was improvisation and there were masks and so many elements. So it took a lot. To be an actor in a commedia play is actually very demanding.
Well, like being a classical dancer or a Shakespearean actor or. So studying here at the uni, as you have, and continuing with your studies, you've done all these other side things as well.
I have.
You've worked with lots of different groups. And last year you were working with No Strings Attached.
Yeah.
And I saw them performing of work that you'd developed with them.
Yeah.
Was that a difficult thing for you?
At the beginning, when I was approached to work at No Strings, of course it's a theatre for people who live with disabilities, and they had asked if I would teach commedia, and it was a real eye-opener because I found myself having my own barriers to the genre and questioning, how is that supposed to work? Because it's such a physically demanding form of theatre. I was limited in my own knowledge, having 20 odd years experience in commedia and having researched it, I'd never come across a single commedia play where people with disabilities were performing it the entire time. And I thought, this is going to be quite a new endeavour, not just for me, but for the whole genre as itself.
Exactly, yes.
So I thought, I think I can give it a go. And what actually happened is the participants taught me more about their abilities and the genre than what I could possibly have taught them. So it was such a big learning experience for me. Things like, the way that we teach an actor how to hold a position, I was using every technical term that I had ever mastered, and it was, find another way to explain. So something very simple like how you would describe a grand Zanni walk, which is this big elaborate step that they have to take in order to move every part of their body.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Explaining that was not effective, but if I said, it was actually one of the participants that said, it's like walking on the moon. And I was like, yes, it is actually like walking on the moon. Fantastic. So it was like reframing how I could teach them
Yes, I understand.
these characters. And then once we broke through that barrier, oh my God, the hoots of laughter that we had. And it was so fun. And they really showed me just how, like, you know, we put our own biases and lenses on, and they were just smashing it, you know, teaching me that, you know, that it's not about the disability. You can see straight through that. And these are wonderful actors who can really take on any character. And I just was, it was one of the best groups that I had worked with for a Commedia play.
That's fulfilling,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it
That
really was,
is
yeah.
why you do what you do at the end of the day. Because having all of this knowledge, if you don't know how to use it, getting knowledge from sort of different tangents of what you understand, it's wonderful.
And that's really inspired me to then rethink what I do next for my next creative projects.
Well, you did a piece called The Bone Cage.
Bone Cage, yes. Yes, so there was this time, so a bit before that, I was actually working in the VR, virtual reality space, and I wanted, I don't know, I think I was having a moment about performing arts. At that time, wasn't really getting a lot of funding, and digital technology was really all the rage, and I wanted to champion theatre again and find a way to blend the two.
Yes, exactly.
So I was interested, because I really like audience interaction. So my interest was, well, we have VR at our house and we like to play VR games, but it's all predetermined, the game's already mapped out for you. I thought, what if you had an audience member wearing a VR headset, and then they were really in a live stage show, and the actors were talking to a camera, which really was the person in the audience, and my mind just went on this, I went on these huge tangents.
Well, those sorts of concepts are being looked at in lots of state theatre companies.
Exactly.
Sydney State Theatre Company just did
exactly.
something similar.
So, the research director at the time liked my idea and let me loose on a couple of eager third-year creative students, and away we went.
And it happened.
So I did a very short Wizard of Oz play where an audience member was Dorothy, and that was a VR Wizard of Oz live show that you could sort of. It was an interesting experiment.
Right.
But after that came an invitation to make that into a TEDx talk. And then after that came, all right, now I really want to do something that's hard-hitting and about some social justice. So that's when Bone Cage came in.
Yes, I've seen.
Yes.
But you filmed it as well as made it a live piece.
Yeah, so we filmed it, we performed it as part of the Fringe 2022, and we also did live streaming shows as well, because COVID was around at that time. Yeah.
So of all of the things that you've done, what's your official title now?
Well, I'm Dr. Di Niro, I suppose, but I have a.
I've got this sore wrist, Dr. Di Niro.
I can't do that, but I can heal your funny bone though.
I laugh. I wish I could have. So, do you find though, when you're officially called doctor, do you find people actually say those things to you, assuming that people in
a medical doctor? Yeah.
Yes, that people in the arts can't be a doctor.
Yes, it is very interesting. I think it is quite tough. It was originally tough to finish your PhD in theatre, and then people question, oh, what is your PhD in? And you're a doctor of what? And why did you bother doing that? And what would be its purpose? So I found being quite frustrated by the constant questioning and having to justify who I was and why I had done this. And then I found a voice through publication. So I started writing about the experiences of a creative practitioner and a creative researcher and the struggles that they have.
I think people don't entirely understand that, in a way, you're being a doctor of the mind, because as humans we need this visualisation of other things. We need to be taken places to forget whatever we're worried about today, to go on a journey through a story or whatever.
Theatre transports you out of your reality into a fictional space.
Yes, it's the ability to, I suppose, the ability to train transporters.
Exactly.
It's a bit weird to say, but it is. We often forget, and I think most people know that I'm involved with running a school with children, and it's really difficult when you're talking to parents who don't see being a performer as a career. and yet it's a difficult career, but to rise to the top in any field, like football, for example.
Exactly.
All the kids that play football, they don't end up playing for the AFL.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a small percentage that gets to the top.
And only a small percentage of performers reach the top as well. But they can become teachers, they can become academics, they can become writers, producers, people that work behind a camera or backstage.
And it's also about finding your passion as well. Like
Absolutely.
I found a passion for Commedia, and it was my love of that theatre that drove my passion for virtual reality, for Bone Cage, for social justice, for working with people with disability. All of that stems from this one genre, which if I hadn't invested all of those years and all of that research into, I would have never have discovered
But
the
you
magic.
know, if you think about it, if you hadn't had the life before that, to know what you were capable of doing and then give it a form, I suppose.
That's right.
Is that a way of explaining it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are you going to do when you grow up?
Keep doing theatre. No, I actually love interdisciplinary research. I love film, games, animation. So that's all driven me into my new role. So I'm the academic coordinator of SAE, which is a brand new tertiary institution here in Adelaide. And it's all about creative practice and really hands-on practical ways of learning in the creative industry. So I'm really excited.
No, well, I think it's very exciting to have you in that position, having known what your whole range of things are. And you're also a mum.
I am. 2 beautiful little girls.
And you happen to be married to the studio manager
I
who
just
looks
happen
after
to be.
this,
So.
which is how I first met you, I think.
I think so.
Yes, so it's just delightful to have actually
I
been
know.
able to sit and talk with you. And we'll be back to talk a little bit more to Corinna in just a moment. We've been talking about Commedia dell'arte with the lovely Corinna. And this is the book that you've co-edited and written a couple of...
A few chapters.
few chapters of. Where will this go? Where will a book like this go? And where will it be available?
Yeah, so you can buy it online. So a lot of bookstores have it online. Routledge, the publishing house, have it on their website. But you'll find it in universities and predominantly secondary schools and acting training.
Yes, so anyone really interesting to find out from the Corinna's mouth. No, congratulations on that. It's hard, it's difficult on television to flick through it and say, well, there's no pictures, but there are. No, there are pictures, there are pictures. But there's such interesting comment here from many of the people who have been masters in the art form.
So I really wanted to talk about Commedia in the Asia Pacific because, would you believe, in 500 years of history, no one's written a book about Commedia in the East.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so really fascinating that, we've got scholars and artists and teachers and practitioners and mask makers who live in India and Indonesia and Japan, China, all doing Commedia there and talking about how they introduce Commedia to people who've never heard of it.
What really interests me is the base characters that this, that this was originally structured around.
Yep.
If you look at almost any comedy TV show,
Absolutely.
you'll see the same sorts of characters exist in all of those.
Because they're universal. They're all archetypes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll see them everywhere.
How lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
So delighted. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us on OurTime.
Yes.
And good luck with this. And
Thanks.
what's your next project?
Oh, well, because I'm academic coordinator at SAE, I wanted to give a quick shout out and let everyone know that there's this brand new creative practice university here in Adelaide. And if you're interested in film, audio, music, creative industries, AR, VR, motion capture, green screen, film, animation, games, all of that.
My head is buzzing already.
We're located just on Franklin Street near Victoria Square, and the campus is brand new. We launched it.
Fantastic.
We launched it just in February, and after a $6 million build, it's got all this brand new equipment, and we are very excited to have
If
the
only
community.
they could compress the time because we've run out.
Yes, I know.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to you as well. So until next time on OurTime, keep yourself nice till then.